So you want to read the Bible, but you just have no time. You're busy, you have jobs, you have kids, you have school. The key is to make it a daily habit and to make time. Just like you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, you don't even have to think about it. It's an automatic habit. You can do the same thing with reading the Bible. And that's what I do. I am always busy. I go to sleep really, really late, and I still make time to read the Bible because I turned it into my daily habit. And the more I do it, the more I want to read the Bible, so I always make time, and you can too. And here are some tips. Number one is to use a daily alarm. You want to set a daily alarm 7 days a week. Choose a time when you have time to focus and you're relaxed. You don't want to choose a time when you're super busy and running around. You don't want to choose a time when you're driving. If you have time, even 5 minutes a day, you do want to start small. Start with 5 minutes a day, and then you will slowly increase that. Choose a time when you can sit down and focus and not be disturbed. It could be during your lunch break at work, even if you have to sit in your car. That's where I used to take my lunch break. It could be on the way to work on a subway, if you can sit down and put some headphones in your ears and not have to listen to the noise on the subway. It could be before bed, it could be early in the morning. Just choose a time when you have time to yourself and start small. Also, it's not about the time you spend reading, it's about what you get out of it. It's also not about the number of chapters you read, because you can spend hours on one verse just studying and learning it and absorbing it and applying it in your life. So don't focus on quantity or how fast you read or anything like that. But you could start with one chapter. Like one chapter is usually 5 minutes, more or less. It depends on the chapters. But there are some really short chapters. There's some longer chapters. But you can start with a chapter a day or start with 5 minutes a day. Number two is to create a beautiful, relaxing space that makes you want to read. I personally cannot read or focus or do any kind of work in a messy place or a cluttered space. So I have to have, even if it's a tiny little corner, even if it's on your bed, I like to turn on some twinkle lights or some dim lighting. I like to light some candles. You can spray a nice smelling spray in the room, really get the mood going, almost like you're making time for a boyfriend, but you're making time to spend with Jesus. So create a little space, even if it's in your closet, where you could sit down and feel inspired to read. And if you don't have a clean space at home, then you can go outside and you can even listen. So that's tip number three. That's how I started out. I used to just go on nature walks and listen to the Bible on my Bible app. I used the YouVersion app, and I would just listen to the Bible, and I would walk around, and I love nature, and that's where I feel mostly connected to God. So it was like the perfect combination. You could walk and listen to the Bible. You don't have to stick to a very strict, I have to read, I have to use paper. Just use what you have in that moment, because if you truly love the Bible and you love the Word, you will read it for the rest of your life, and you'll go through different cycles and different ways of reading it. So just start with where you are right now. Tip number four is to start in the right book of the Bible. I would recommend praying about it and see if God leads you to a specific book in the Bible. You can get a study Bible. I started with the New Testament with Matthew, and I think that now that I've gone through most of the Bible, I'm still finishing up the Old Testament because it's very long. But I think that was the right place for me to start, and it was more engaging and easier to consume for a beginner. So I do recommend starting with Matthew, but you can start wherever you feel that will help you want to read the Bible. Another thing that's really important is when I first started reading, I didn't understand what the context of each book was. I didn't know that some of those books were actually letters. I got an NLT Bible by Dayspring. I think it was the Get Closer Bible, and each book had an introduction page that would tell you what's happening in the book, who wrote it, what's the purpose of the book, and it really helped me understand when I actually started reading, because before I started doing that, I was so lost. And when you're lost, you lose interest. You don't even want to make time. So you want to give yourself all the tools so that you actually want to read the Bible. So get yourself a Bible or go online. There's free websites, and just get information. Get a book where you have an intro page to each book. It could be most study Bibles have that, but the Bible that I had, it was not a study Bible. It just had a lot of beginner resources in the Bible, which made it really easy for me to read. Tip number 5 is to choose the right translation. If you're reading the King James, you may not be able to understand it and you're not going to want to read it. Some people cannot even understand the New King James, which is my favorite translation, but people can't understand it either. Choose a translation that works for you. You can go online and you can actually compare all the translations verse by verse. A lot of people love the NLT and the ESV. They're like easier. A lot of kids' Bibles are in NIV. So choose the right translation so that you're actually interested in reading the Bible. Tip number 6 is you can use a devotional book or you can use a devotional from an app where they create like a 5-day plan, 7-day plan, but it's based on a topic. For example, if you're going through grief right now, they'll have plans specifically on grief and they'll have an intro, like a story or intro page and verses. Each day you will read a verse on that topic. So those are great if you're going through something, and that'll help you at least read something every day, even if you're not reading like consecutively. It's still something, and it still helps you create a daily habit. Also, make sure if you do use an app, and you could still use the app for the sole purpose of they do have daily reminders for you to read your Bible. So you can have that on top of your alarm, or you can just have one or the other. But the apps will also remind you it's time to read your Bible. Jumping in here, tip number 7 was to use a devotional. And I used devotionals a lot in the very beginning. I don't really use them anymore, but I still have them. And they usually have a 365-page book. It'll have an actual date. So it'll actually say like January 1st, July 9th. And there will be like a little topic. They'll have one verse for the day. They'll have a whole message. And they'll have like a question for you to kind of think about. So the one I opened right now, this one is called Jesus in Red, and it's 365 meditations on the words of Jesus. This one at the very top, it says November 2nd, the will of God. It says, man, who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you? Luke 12:14. Then it's got like a whole message. Then it says, soul search. Have I ever been guilty of trying to manipulate God for my own ends? And then there's a prayer at the bottom. It says, Father, may I always side with you rather than try to have you side with me. So I really like this because I love leather and it's just beautiful. And this one is all about Jesus, and other devotionals have verses throughout, from the whole Bible. So this is one way to start because it's very quick and it's short. It's a good way to start, but I personally just don't use them anymore. But it's a great way to get your life started. And I like that there's a date and you can stick to an actual plan. Tip number 8 is to transform or beautify your Bible. If you have like an old Bible, or if you found a Bible that you just don't like, I love adding tabs. And I also changed the cover and the inside page of this Bible that I had laying around for a couple of years that I just never used. And it's because I just didn't like the way it looked. But now it's like a whole brand new Bible. And if you want to watch me do that, I have a video on it that I'll put up on the screen somewhere. So that's another way to get yourself to want to read the Bible, because now I love picking up this Bible. Tip number 9 is to create a habit tracker to help you feel more proud of yourself. You know that you've gone 5 days in a row, 7 days in a row, and you can do that on paper. But if you use an app, they will have a daily streak as well. I remember I once got to like 60 or 7 day streak, and then I skipped a day. I might have used an actual Bible that day, or maybe just skipped a day. And I remember feeling so disappointed that I skipped a day, but it doesn't matter if you skip a day. Just keep going, use a paper tracker, and it'll help you stay accountable. Tip number 10 is to not quit if you skip a day. Everyone skips a day, things happen. Just do not give up, do not quit, and keep going. Keep opening the Bible, keep opening your app, just do something. Tip number 11 is if you struggle seeing, if you have eye vision issues like me, get yourself some reading glasses, or you can get yourself a large print Bible. Make it easier to read, because I found that I was kind of dreading reading the Bible because I had a hard time seeing, and I didn't want to whip out my glasses because it made me feel kind of helpless without them. So I ended up buying myself a super giant print. It's a 16-point Bible, and now I can read it without glasses if I wanted to. So do whatever you can to make it easier. Choose the right translation, choose the right medium, whether it's paper or an app, or make sure the font is big enough for you to read. Tip number 12, in the very beginning, I was lost and I had a lot of questions. So get a Bible where you feel okay highlighting. I have one specific one where I highlight and the rest I don't touch. I have quite a few Bibles. Highlight key verses and get a separate notebook where you could write a lot of questions down so that you can later answer them, so that you're not as confused and you can go back and reference. You can have a Q&A section. For example, you can have questions on like the first half of the book, and on the second half of the book, you can have answers. Make sure you number each question. For example, let's say question number 7 is, why did Jesus not want to drink wine when it was offered to him on the cross, for example. And then just keep writing a million questions, and then in the answer, you could write answer number 7, and then you can answer that question. And then later you can reference and go back and get better understanding. Tip number 13 is to study. You can use different study Bibles. You can go online. There's different commentaries. There are commentary Bibles I didn't know they had, which I'm planning on getting. I only have study Bibles right now. You want to get different opinions and different points of views from different people on specific verses that you don't understand, or just that you want to dive deeper. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you read or how long you read, it's that you get something out of it. So don't obsess over time or that you only read a verse. Just make sure you're getting something out of it and you're able to apply the lessons in the Bible into your life. There are apps that I use where I look up commentary, and it's surprising, but a lot of them will have different opinions. Turn it into a study and not just reading and you're done. Like, oh, I'm done reading, I'm done. You want to really dive deep and understand the Bible. So if you find that you spend a lot of time on other apps, like it's very easy to get sucked into YouTube and TikTok and whatever else not, surely you can spare 5 minutes to read the Bible. So I recommend creating screen time timers on your apps so that when you're on it for over an hour or whatever time you choose, you will get an alert that you've already spent an hour on an app, and that will help you stay more accountable with your time so that you can at least squeeze 5 minutes a day to read your Bible. So these are my tips. If you are a regular Bible reader, leave a tip in the comments that might help someone who stumbles upon this video. I really hope this was helpful, and I'm excited for you to start your daily Bible reading journey. And if you still don't know why you should be reading the Bible, you might want to check out the video that I did right here.